Good evening, John Thompson. I'm here for part 9 of my conversion of the Revell USS Arizona into the USS Pennsylvania. I got a lot to show you guys in this video. The model has changed, and it's probably going to change again in the future. I've made several changes. The first change I'm going to tell you guys about, I found some 1/400 scale markings. They're late World War II markings, but I can modify them by cutting off the white stripe around where the star is. And I took a little bit of a toothpick and basically made a fine point on it. Dipped it in red acrylic paint and made that little dot in the center of the star, the red dot that was on there pre-World War II. So I'm going to modify those decals and put them on the aircraft. So that'll basically come together. I also found these decals, basically they were from a 1/400 scale USS Missouri model I had that I never built. So I'm sort of basically scrounging to find bits and pieces here and there. The name for the ship itself, I have those decals on order. They're going to be coming in a couple of days. They're using microscale decals for that. So that'll be great when that goes on, and the ship will officially have a name. Right now it's just got the number 38 on it, reflecting the USS Pennsylvania. So without further ado, here's work I've done. Alrighty. And here we see that I have added the boot stripe using my close enough method. For those of you who are not familiar with that, close enough is basically, Revell has a scribed line for the waterline on their ships. And what happens is you basically paint as close as you can to that scribed line. You can do it with a brush if you're careful. What I like to do is I like to cut in, much like you would, like I said, when you paint a house. When you're doing the top of the wall and the ceiling, you want to cut in with a brush before you roll the broad areas. So I'll generally do that with a fine brush, and then what I'll do is use a bigger brush to basically fill in the areas up to where that paint is. Now, it can be a little ragged, and if you're over the line, don't panic. It's not really anything to worry about. What's going to fix all that is when you do the boot striping. Now, I have tried several different methods for boot striping, and the best one that's worked for me so far is using strips of bond paper attached with Elmer's glue. And I'll tell you why I like this method better. I like it better than using chart tape. Chart tape tends to peel off. It doesn't really stick very well, loses its tack, and it's kind of harder to work with. It gets wavy. Elmer's glue and paper are a wonderful combination because if you make a mistake, you can take that striping off the model with a little bit of water, and it will lift off the model, and you will not damage the paint underneath. So that's a big plus and big advantage for you there. One of the things I want to show you is some further detailing too I've done on the model. Because I'm getting closer to finishing this, I was able to add a few things. One of the things I did here, I started to add crew, and you can probably see some of them right here as I rotate the ship around. These were the crew that came with the photo etch set, and so I've been applying them. I used all of them. I wish I had more. They're a lot better. These are the gold medal crew members. The ones from Tom's, I was going to use them. They're crude. They're horrible. They don't even look like people. They're like deformed, and I'm not really happy with those castings for some reason. But there may be another possibility for a change on this model I want to do, mainly over here on the forward mast. I want to add some bracing over here, see if I could do that forward. That's one of the other changes possibly in the future. And I do have those parts available in the Tom's detail kit. So that's a possibility in the future. One of the other things I did was I painted my photo etch. You can see here I painted all the photo etch railings. It does make a difference in the appearance of the model significantly. Now the only things I've left brass are the ship's ladders, basically, that I put within the superstructure. One of the reasons I didn't paint them, and I have a very good reason for that, is I was afraid of getting paint splatter on the deck. I did such a nice job painting the deck, I didn't want to make a mess of things. So I also like the look of the brass too. It does give the model a little something, a little color to it. So that was one of the things decision I decided to go with. Now, I'll be getting to the point soon too where I'll be able to decal the model in terms of the planes And like I said, I mentioned about having the ship's name, the actual Navy letters on order. So, like I said, that's going to be fun putting all that stuff together and getting that done. I'll be at the point where I'll basically be starting almost to do rigging on it. That basically is going to really be nice. The decals that I did steal from 1/400 scale USS Missouri model that was basically unbuilt. I used it as basically a sacrificial kit for building other projects. So I do have nothing left but a hull and the deck and maybe some basic superstructure elements. But one of the things that I did discover with the kit is there's a very nice decal set that comes with it. So I was able to get a bunch of U.S. Navy flags. In addition to that, I got American flags. I had national ensigns, which are really nice. I could put one on the jackstaff, and they're relatively in scale. The ones that Revell give you are a little bit big, so these are nice. They'll be decals, and they'll actually look like flags waving in the wind when I'm done. So this is basically one of the things that I've been trying to do, in addition to stealing and modifying the national insignia, which basically, like I said, I took a toothpick, made a point, and touched a little tiny red dot in the middle of each star, and I'm going to cut off the white stripes along the edge, so it'll be just a round star with the red dot in there. So that'll be the pre-war insignia that will go on the aircraft, and luckily they give you 8, which is great. So I have enough there to basically letter the 4 aircraft. There is no insignia apparently on the side for the vintage I'm modeling of the fuselage, so that's kind of good. Those are actually numbers over there. I do have some small 1/700 scale numbers that I could put on there. I have to look and see what I have in my stash. Basically, I like to keep what's called a goodie box. I call them goodie boxes because I get a bunch of optional parts left over from models. Sometimes you'll use not all the parts that they give you, because either they're optional or they give you extra parts, or they're parts meant for another release of a kit or something like that. Or if you want to build another version, they give you optional parts. So I like to kind of keep a stash of parts. Mainly, most of my parts that I do have that are spare are the 1/700 scale. So I do like to go back and forth occasionally, and some 1/700 scale decals actually do come in handy for 1/426 scale work. So it works out very nicely. One of the things I do want to point out, I'm going to bring the model back again here. I indicated that before I was going to do canvas on the decks here, where the railings are. What I did was I encountered a challenge, and that challenge was to make that look like canvas. The unfortunate part about it was that when I painted it white the first time around, you could still see the molded lines, and it looked almost like it was shrink wrapped. So I kind of put the white paint on a little thicker, and it sort of took on that canvas look, like there'd be canvas over a metal railing. And I also originally I had the white going all the way down to the bottom of the casting, and unfortunately you can't do that. I actually left a little bit of gray. I decided to go very carefully with the detail brush and a very straight hand, which was a challenge too in itself to get right. It took a few tries, but what I did was I wound up painting the bottom part of those decks gray, and it looks a lot better. Now, I do have extra photo etch parts, which I may be adding braces to the forward part of the forward tripod, mainly under those 2 forward gun tubs on the top there. So that's going to be the next order of business in the modeling process. I actually, ironically, had enough paint to do the job so far. I was very concerned about running out of paint, so that definitely I was very fortunate there. So like I said, next phase is going to be rigging and hopefully final detailing, and I should be done with this thing very soon. So I'm looking forward to showing you guys the final results in part 10, and that's basically it. That brings us up to date, and have a great evening.